KWB, 1400 AM, Clarksville, Tennessee.
All right, sports fans, it's time to suit up and dive right into the Saturday Sports Splash presented by F&M Bank. Now here's your host, Justin Swallows.
Good Saturday morning to you, sports fans, and welcome on into the Splash. We are honored that you have yet again chosen to kick off your sports weekend with our show, and appropriately so. We will be talking a ton of basketball on today's Sports Hour. It is that time of year as the regular season winds down in college hoop. That's where we will be throughout most of the show. We will take a short break in the midst of some college basketball talk to get you ready for the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup season getting started tomorrow with the Daytona 500. We'll talk about that with Chris Knight of CatchFence.com. He'll be with us a little later on. But college basketball on both ends. At the end of the show today, we're going to be talking with Austin Peay assistant men's basketball coach Sergio Rucco. And here at the beginning, we'll talk UT basketball with former Vol great Isaiah Victor. He's a great friend of our show and kind enough to join us again this morning. Isaiah, how are you?
Fine. How you doing, man?
We are awesome and enjoying a great season of UT hoops. And I wanted to ask you, just as we get started, who do you think deserves credit for the jump that Tennessee basketball has taken this year? They were right out of 500 club last year, and now they're a top 25 team with mostly the same players on the roster. How did that happen?
Well, you give the credit to Coach Barnes. I mean, he didn't have the McDonald's All-Americans, didn't have the five-star guys. He went and got some 3 stars and 4 stars, and he developed them. I mean, it takes time to develop a player, especially a young player. So I think you're just seeing the fruits of all the labor that he's put into it.
You know, we have to talk about the good and the bad here in the Saturday Sports Splash as we talk University of Tennessee basketball. Isaiah Victor is our guest, former Vol great. And I wanted to ask you, Isaiah, what happened, do you think, last Saturday at Alabama? That's without question, I know, a really tough place to play, but getting hammered by 28 points against an unranked team does not bode well with the NCAA selection committee. Were the Vols, you think, just buying the national hype off a win at Kentucky, or should we as fans maybe be worried a little bit that as a team they might have peaked a little too early?
That's nothing to worry about. They already bounced back from that game, so that's no big deal. What probably happened was it was an emotional roller coaster ride. They beat Kentucky at Kentucky, first sweep since '99, and I was a little concerned about that. It's always, had we went to Kentucky and got beat by 30, we probably would have beat Alabama handily, but they didn't have that game marked on the schedule. It wasn't circled or anything. It was just Tuscaloosa, and Alabama's got a fierce coach and great home crowd, and just, I mean, they got, McDonald's All-American. They got Sexton down there. He's an NBA guy. So we just caught them on a bad night. It's the SEC. It's going to happen. It happens to the best of them. And like I said, we've already bounced back, so that was just a speed bump.
You say they've already bounced back. They edged a South Carolina team that had lost 5 games in a row coming in. You feel pretty good after the effort Tuesday night?
Yeah, I mean, you win. I mean, if we edge every team and win every game by half a point, yeah, oh, yeah. So, now you don't want to be too hard on them, too picky. They got to be looking forward, which is it's only human nature. They're going to be in the dance. They got the SEC tournament come up. It's the top to bottom. The SEC is the most even. I won't say the toughest. I don't know how good the quality of play is, but I know everybody's about even. Talent-wise, and definitely, every game that you play on the road is already tough in the SEC, and it just gets a little tougher when the talent is pretty even like it is.
We're talking Tennessee basketball this morning here in the Saturday Sports Splash with former University of Tennessee great Isaiah Victor, and you mentioned the Southeastern Conference. This debate is being had nationwide, but I want to let you weigh in here. Do you think it's the best basketball league in America right now? And last check in the bracketology projections, they've got 8 teams projected into the field of 68. Is it the best league in the country? How could you make the case for that?
It's tough. You got to look at what we've done against the other conferences, which I don't think has been all that great. I can't really speak for the SEC on a national level. I don't watch enough of the other conferences. I watch my team mostly. So, and then our neighbors in the SEC. But I will say, it is a very tough conference, and just based on what we've been doing to each other, we should be good to go, no matter how many we get in the tournament.
Well, let's talk about whether or not Tennessee is good to go. You and I have talked about it before, but inconsistency is what continues to scare me the most about this Vols club. Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield, they're supposed to be the leaders of this squad, and last weekend at Alabama, you say they've already bounced back from that game, but last weekend down in Tuscaloosa, they were a combined 7 of 20 from the floor. Why, in your opinion, is this team so up and down, especially offensively?
Because it's a defensive team, and they got a defensive-minded coach, and I really think he's defense first and offense second, which, you can still win the game. A lot of people believe defense wins championships, so that's the most concerning thing would be how their defense is going, which has been pretty solid even in the really bad games. So I think what did Alabama have down there? 78 points, something like that, maybe. So it wasn't like they had 100 points or nothing like that. You're not saying that our defense was any good, but people aren't just beating us up on that end as much as our offense is off. Our defense is on more than the offense is, so that's the bright spot.
Guard play is another source of frustration with this version of UT basketball. One night it might be Lamonte Turner with the hot hand. The next night it might be Jordan Bowden or James Daniel. How much It would not be radio without some technical difficulties. That happens from time to time. But speaking of technical difficulties, Isaiah Victor is our guest this morning here in the Saturday Sports Flash as we talk some UT basketball. The former Vol great's kind enough to join us yet again. And I was just talking about the guard play for Tennessee. That's been kind of a source of frustration just because you never know who it's going to be. It might be Lamonte Turner with the hot hand. It might be James Daniel. It might be Jordan Bowden. How much tougher does it make life for Coach Rick Barnes and company, Isaiah, never knowing which backcourt combination that they can really trust?
I think it makes it easier, man. It sounds like they got a couple of guys that can get it done on any given night, and then you add one more in the mix. Sounds like it could be any of the three, which is a whole lot better than putting your eggs in one basket, no matter if that one is, whoever the greatest guards are. Chris Lofton, what if he has off shooting nights? So they're going to adjust in game anyway, so it's not like who's ever having a bad night has to stay in the game. They're going to see who's got it going. By now they can tell who's got it going and who doesn't. We know he's highly flammable off the bench, and that's probably why he comes off the bench, because sometimes some of those shots he takes doesn't fall, and you just make your read throughout the game, and it's a luxury to have 2 or 3 guys that can get it done on any given night.
Let's look at what's left. Tennessee's 19-6. They have 5 games left to play. They're at Georgia this afternoon. Then they're home Wednesday against Florida. They're at Ole Miss next Saturday. Then at Mississippi State before coming back home to finish the season against Georgia on Saturday, March the 3rd. What are the best and worst case finishes, in your opinion, for this team? What's the ceiling? What's the best you think they could finish, and what's the worst you think they'll do?
Of course, they can win them all. I don't hear anybody, and really there's nobody in the SEC that's just that big and that bad, even including Auburn in that, even though they did beat us earlier. So, they can win them all easily. They should win, 75% of them at worst case. If they're really serious about heading into the postseason and making a big splash. So I wouldn't expect them to lose no more than one more game the rest of the regular season.
So you think 4-1 would be about the worst it could be for the Vols moving forward? That is not exactly a murderer's row as you look at that schedule. It should be
right.
an easy road. But I do want to talk about the game this afternoon against Georgia, Isaiah. You do follow the SEC closely, and Georgia's got a ton of momentum right now, coming off an overtime win at Florida. And I'll contend they got the best player in the conference in Yante Maton. What kind of odds do you give the Vols today down in Athens? It's another tough road environment, very similar to what Tennessee went into last week and got destroyed in.
Yeah, it's very similar. And those guys, they got to be hungry. And, what better team to beat than a team that's ranked? So, they're going to want to build their resume on us. And it's going to be a tough one. If we come out of there with a win, it'll be a close win. And it's always a tough place to play down in Georgia. Smaller, more compact, and, their fans will be into it.
How different are some of the venues in the SEC? You look at the attendance numbers, and they vary greatly from school to school. How tough is it to adjust going from venue to venue? They're pretty different, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You got Rupp Arena that's, 20-some-odd thousand, and then you go to Arkansas, a lot smaller, but in a lot of ways it's louder. And Florida's smaller, it's louder as well. So and then you got Vandy. I mean, they got the end zone seating, and, it's real weird set up there. So they got a real home court advantage in that sense. So, yeah, I thought about it the other day, and it's really no easy place to play in the SEC. And I really believe that.
Well, that makes today's game all that more important for Tennessee and valuable. Anytime you can go on the road in the SEC, I think, and get a win, I think you're doing something pretty special. And the Vols will have that opportunity this afternoon at 5 o'clock against the Georgia Bulldogs. How do you see the matchup playing out, Isaiah? We've talked about the environment, but how do you think things will work out for the Vols? And how much do you think that loss in the SEC tournament, of course, we talked about it, Tennessee's got a ton of players back from last season's squad, and their season ended last year in the SEC tournament with a loss to Georgia. How much does that fuel them today?
It should be all the fuel they need. Extra stuff like that always takes you over the top. It's a revenge game at the end of the day. And they're trying to come up. They desperately need a win against a team like us, and we're trying to keep them down. And especially since they eliminated us from play and essentially eliminated us from the NCAA tournament. We would have won the SEC tournament, we could have got in. But so they put a damper on our dreams, and that shouldn't be taken lightly.
We're headed towards the postseason, and I did want to talk about what's going on now, but we're not the team. We're not part of the program. You are a little more than I am, but we can look ahead. We're allowed to look ahead a little bit into the SEC tournament. Looks like the Vols will end up either the number 2 or the number 3 seed, depending on how things shake out in that tournament. Historically, and you've been a part of the program, you know this, Tennessee's never done well in that SEC tournament. Why do you think that is?
I don't know, man. It's kind of weird. You win one game, maybe 2, and then it's like, we're never in the mix. On that last day, was it Sunday? Yeah, so I really don't know, man. Maybe it's a focus thing, or I might have had some unfavorable draws or whatever the case may be. We just hadn't been getting it done, man.
How much of an advantage will they have if they end up the 2 or the 3 seed? They won't have to play until Friday. They'll only have to win one game to get into the semifinals. That's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, that should be huge. It doesn't happen a lot, but still, man, you got to come out there sometime. That's a disadvantage. I think we did it one year, and then we probably got beat that first game, I want to say. But, yeah, so they just got to come to play regardless and, be focused and ready. I think they will be.
Well, we'll be watching. I know you will be as well, and we appreciate you being a friend of our show and stopping by from time to time to chat with us. What have you got on tap for the weekend? Are you going to be watching a lot of hoop?
Yeah, I actually got my nephew plays he plays for Wofford College, and they play UT Chattanooga. So I'm scheduled to be there tonight and picking up my daughter from Atlanta. She's actually meeting me in Chattanooga, so that'll be fun. And then I got I'll be in Knoxville later on tonight to do Sports Source in the morning. So again,
awesome.
Kind of busy.
Well, we're glad you found some time for us, man. Thank you very much.
All right, have a good one, man.
Former UT basketball great Isaiah Victor's a true friend of our show here on The Splash. It's always good to hear from him. And, hey, you got to be at least cautiously optimistic as a UT basketball fan about where the Vols are going as they head towards the postseason. Isaiah thinks they'll finish strong. I think they need to. Again, the remaining schedule for UT is not exactly a murderer's row. They're at Georgia this afternoon at 5 o'clock. We'll have that contest right here on the Big 1400. Then they are at home on Wednesday against Florida. They're at Ole Miss next Saturday, then at Mississippi State before coming back home to finish the season against Georgia on March the 3rd. I'm with Victor. I think they could win at least 4 of those last 5 games. Today may be the toughest test at Georgia. They'll also have to go to Mississippi State. Those 2 conference road games will be probably the hardest hurdles to overcome throughout the course of the rest of this regular season for UT. I don't think they'll lose at home moving forward. The Vols have such a great home court advantage. You heard Isaiah talking about just how tough it is to go on the SEC, on the road in the SEC and win. Tennessee will try to do that this afternoon against Georgia. Again, we'll have that contest right here on the Big 1400. We will talk more college basketball later on in the show. We'll round out the show today with Austin Peay assistant men's basketball coach Sergio Rucco. There was an article done on letsgop.com detailing the great career that Coach Rucco's had and what a character he is and the great experiences that he's been able to enjoy in the world of college and professional basketball. So we look forward to talking with him later on in the show, but we will take a break from all of that college hoop talk, and when we come back, we're going to get you ready for the Daytona 500. Chris Knight will join us from CatchFence.com right here on the Saturday Sports Splash after this.
Ever lost or misplaced your debit card? Now, before that happens, download the Card Valet mobile app. With it, you can turn your F&M debit card on and off, establish when, where, and how it is used, and much more. And best of all, it's free from F&M Bank. Member FDIC.
Looking to catch the big game with a group of friends? Do it O'Neill style. Want to see a great live band rock the stage? Do it O'Neill style. Hungry for a great meal or just thirsty for an icy cold draft beer? Get them O'Neill style at O'Neill's Bar and Grill, a genuinely great American sports bar. They've got wall-to-wall TVs, huge selections behind the bar, and a menu that obliterates the average pub fare. Clarksville's best times take place at O'Neill's Bar and Grill, located at 1979 Madison Street in Midtown.
Treat your pets to a vacation of their own at the Animal Guest House. Whether you're looking for doggy daycare service or long-term boarding, Animal Guest House will love your most loyal companions as much as you do. They have almost 2 acres of fenced-in roaming space, offer grooming services, and proudly have absolutely 0 breed restrictions. Animal Guest House is located in Woodlawn at 1970 Chester Harris Road. Give them a call at 931-920-2719 or check them out online at animalguesthouse.com. Animalguesthouse.com.
Jackson's Body Shop downtown. Jackson's Body Shop downtown. It's your car, it's your voice. Jackson's Body Shop, the best choice. Dents, dings, major body repair. A free loaner car, 'cause we really care. Jackson's Body Shop downtown. Jackson's Body Shop downtown. Call 647-6989.
When's the last time you ate somewhere that uses real ingredients and makes everything from scratch? If it's been too long, you should head over to the Lunchbox at 2124 Woodlawn Road. They're serving daily barbecue plates featuring everything from smoked chicken to baby back ribs. The Lunchbox menu also features the best hamburgers and all-beef hot dogs around, served on freshly baked homemade buns. Save room for dessert because they've got hand-dipped ice cream and milkshakes too at the Lunchbox, just off from Highway 79 at 2124 Woodlawn Road.
WVWB, 1400 AM, Clarksville, Tennessee.
We have another huge sports weekend on tap for you, and it includes the Daytona 500. All of you motorsports enthusiasts are fired up, I know, and we'll head down to Daytona now as we're joined by Chris Knight of CatchFence.com. Chris, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
We look forward to talking a little NASCAR with you today, and want to get your take on your favorite part about NASCAR Speed Weeks in Daytona. You've been a part of a lot of them. What do you consider the best thing about actually being there in person?
I think it's just the people. You get around these cars and these people, the drivers, the team members, the fans, especially, and they get excited. There's a sense of energy when you come down to Speed Weeks at Daytona, especially for tomorrow's 60th annual Daytona 500. So I think it's just the re-energizing at the start of a new season, and there's a lot of good things happening with NASCAR right now across all 3 of their divisions, whether it's trucks, Xfinity, or Cup.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some of those good things. I was talking to one of our listeners earlier this week about the way the starting grid is determined down in Daytona with those 150 duels. The fans, Chris, really seem to enjoy that. Why shouldn't NASCAR consider expanding that heat race qualifying format out to some of their other venues?
I think it's definitely Daytona. The Daytona 500 is its own element, right? It's its own race, and I think certain things that we see in the sport, there's special circumstances and special races that happen to determine the starting lineup. Look, this is what we've done in NASCAR for the Great American Race for years and years and years, and I think if you were to do it at other racetracks, it would take the tradition away from the Daytona 500. I like the qualifying races, of course. With only having 40 cars, we didn't have the knit and grit of how many cars were going to, who was going to be in position to go home or make the race. But I think when it comes down to it, adding points to that structure, the top 10 finishers in both those dual races got points that are awarded to the 2018 season. So I felt like that element created excitement. And those dual races obviously didn't, as calm as everybody expected them to be. They were the complete opposite, right? They were crazy and chaotic, and we saw what happened with the number of cars. I think 8 in total going to backup cars for tomorrow's Daytona 500.
Chris Knight is our guest from CatchFence.com as we get you ready for the Daytona 500 tomorrow afternoon. And Chris, speaking of those 150 duels, we saw Daytona 500 pole sitter Alex Bowman decide to play it safe in the back of the pack versus risking damage to his obviously fast car. However, he was greatly criticized for doing that by other drivers, namely veteran Kevin Harvick. What is your opinion on Bowman's approach to the 150 races? Does he need the restrictor plate experience, you think, as a younger driver, or was he smart to play it safe?
Well, I definitely understand the mentality of the Hendrick Motorsports team. Look, it's the Daytona 500. He's replacing, taking over for Dale Earnhardt, Jr., who has decided to step away from a full-time driver in the Cup Series, and obviously there's a lot of pressure that performs, and he doesn't want to take a risk of damaging his car. But I stand behind with what Kevin Harvick said. I thought Kevin Harvick had a great point. These cars were so unstable in the draft, and not even, you don't even have to have contact to initiate a spin, as we saw that during the dual races. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Bowman and that Hendrick team can maneuver from any potential catastrophe that they could see during the race tomorrow. I think the one good thing that Bowman has on his side is that he's starting near the front, but it's going to be important for Alex Bowman to be patient because it is a 200-lap race. It's a long race. It's 500 miles. But I definitely think that as far as the learning curve goes, especially with this new downforce package with the no ride height rule here at Daytona, it could potentially backfire on Bowman in tomorrow's race.
As we talk about Bowman, let's dive further into the fresh crop of drivers in this year's Daytona 500 field. Hendrick Motorsports will feature 2 young guns with Bowman in the 88 and William Byron in the 24. Meanwhile, Richard Petty's team will feature rookie Bubba Wallace this year. Which of the Cup Series newcomers, Chris, do you see having the biggest impact on the sport this year?
Oh, I think a lot of them, I think they all will at some point or another. Ryan Blaney got his first win as officially Team Penske driver in the dual race on Thursday night. But I think when you look at the youth movement that's going on in the sport right now, and when it comes to Byron, Bowman, Wallace, Blaney, etc., you have to look at the Hendrick Motorsports organization and what they're doing with William Byron and Alex Bowman. I think those are the 2 guys that everybody are keeping their eye on. I think the expectations are high for those guys. But I think someone like Darrell Wallace Jr., obviously the draft plays a great equalizer for a team like that. But I think, the young guys in the sport, they're definitely going to be aggressive, and they're definitely going to put things on the line, and they're going to go for show. And I think that mixed with the veteran drivers it's going to create a season that will be one to remember. But I think, as far as the guys that I feel like that will get the opportunity to win their first race, I really think that as cool, calm, and collected as William Byron is behind the wheel of a race car, I expect him to be the first among the newest generation of youth movement to get to victory lane.
Chris Knight is our guest from CatchFence.com here this morning in the Saturday Sports Splash as we get you ready for tomorrow afternoon's Daytona 500. And Chris, as we talk about changes in the Cup Series, I think we would be goofing up not to mention the new Chevrolet body style. The manufacturer seemed pretty dead set on putting out a race car that closely resembles the Camaros that are available on the showroom floor. But how will that new body style, you think, fare on the racetrack? I know there are 3 Chevys starting in the top 10 tomorrow. How much adjusting is it going to take in order for these teams to get used to those new Camaros?
Well, I asked Jimmy Johnson the same question during Daytona 500 Media Day this week, and I agree with what he said. You're not going to see what the new Camaros are capable of at a place like Daytona. I think it's going to be a place like Las Vegas or even California before we really get our hands on to see what the Camaros will do. Obviously, Chevrolet has put a lot of work into their new car. The teams are very happy about the performance and the look of the new car, and I think that Chevrolet is willing and prepared to step up their game in 2018. Toyota, for the last couple of seasons, has had a very strong and dominant car, even with their old body style Toyota Camry and their new body style Toyota Camry. But I think as far as Chevrolet goes, I think they come to play in 2018, and I think whether it be a rookie driver behind the wheel or even the veterans like Kyle Larson and Jimmy Murray and Jimmy Johnson, Chevrolet is going to be a threat in 2018, and that was evident in the duels and during qualifying on Sunday.
Chris, as we talk about manufacturers, it seems like that teams are changing manufacturers more these days. It's hard to keep up with who's driving what in the sport more than it used to be. You knew that certain names were going to be behind the wheel of a certain manufacturer's vehicle, but now it's just not like that anymore. Do you think that affects the fan base at all? Do you think fans are loyal to one brand over another?
I think absolutely fans are loyal to one brand or another, but I don't necessarily think that, I think the biggest switch that we've seen as far as teams during the offseason is obviously Richard Petty Motorsports moving from Ford to Chevrolet. But I think when you go back to looking at teams who had made the manufacturer change, right, the biggest adjustment was Stewart Haas Racing going from Chevrolet to Ford in 2017. Obviously, I don't think that they were as strong as they could have been last season because of that manufacturer change, but I think that they'll really be strong in 2018. But I think the fans, they're diehards. Some are very loyal to the blue oval, and some are very loyal to the Chevrolet bow tie, and some like that Toyota nameplate. So, but that's part of racing, right? The fans have their loyalty, and I think while, fans are open to rooting on new drivers and new manufacturers if their particular driver goes over there. So I think it's caught in the middle, right? You got some fans that will stick to Chevrolet no matter what, no matter who's driving, and I think you'll have fans that'll stick to a driver no matter what manufacturer they're driving, and that's kind of a cool thing.
Chris Knight, our guest from CatchFence.com this morning in the Saturday Sports Splash as we get you ready for the start of the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup season, the Daytona 500 tomorrow. And Chris, one thing that isn't new, but I think should be mentioned as we go through our little race day preview here, is the fact that Danica Patrick is again in the field for the 500. This, it sounds like, could be her final NASCAR race. How would you rate her stock car racing career? To what extent has she been able, you think, to pave the way for other women into the sport?
Well, I think she's always opened that door for other female drivers to compete, and I think while she's made it to the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series level, there's been females along the way that have opened the doors in the Xfinity and the Truck Series. But looking back at Danica's career, I think she definitely had some positive moments and some great highlights in the sport, but she's had a lot of low moments in the sport. And I think when you look back at her career, you wonder what could have been. I would, the biggest thing for me is I would have liked to have seen her stick it out with her and Tony Gibson when Tony Gibson was her crew chief at Stewart Haas. When I look at that pairing, she was the fastest that she had ever been in her stock car career. And for whatever reason, they felt like that change needed to be made. And I don't think Danica was ever as competitive as she once was when she was paired with Tony Gibson. Her expectations for her final NASCAR Cup Series race tomorrow in the 500, I think they're reasonable expectations. I think she wants to be competitive and hang around. Her car drafted okay. I think that push comes to shove, she can find the right help. She'll be okay. And she, I don't think she has a strong car when she won the pole here several years ago for the 500, but I think she has the credentials and the capabilities of finding herself in the position to have a good exit to the sport if she can stay out of the big ones.
Chris, let's talk about opportunity for improvement. It seems like every year there is one specific ownership group that really figures things out in the off season. Which collective race team would you say has the chance to show the highest level of betterment from this season to over last?
Well, there's one team in particular when it comes to that, and that's the 22 team of Joey Logano and Team Penske, right? Yeah, Joey Logano had some crashes, and then they had the points infraction at Richmond International Raceway in the spring of 2017, and they were just never the same. They could never get their mojo. They could never get back to victory lane, and they could never find the speed that they needed in that 22 team to propel Joey Logano into the playoffs. And that was a big surprise, and probably one of the biggest surprises of the 2017 season. I know that Joey Logano has the confidence in his crew chief, Todd Gordon, and I think that Team Penske has worked obviously hard during the offseason to make sure that not only Logano's team, but Brad Keselowski's and new teammate Ryan Blaney have stepped up to the plate and can swing hard in 2018. And I think that overall the Fords have a lot to look forward to for this year as far as speed goes, and also looking ahead to 2019 when they'll get a new body change.
One thing you guys are great with at CatchFence.com is you guys find storylines that nobody else really knows all that much about or nobody else is really covering. What are some of those behind-the-scenes storylines going into tomorrow afternoon's race that maybe some of us have missed? Where should our focus be as fans prior to the green flag dropping at this year's Daytona 500?
Well, I think when it comes to this year's Daytona 500, as long as you're in the field and you have a competitive car, you realistically have a shot to compete in the Daytona 500. You look at a guy like Justin Marks, who just recently came off a hellacious mountain climb. I believe Mount Everest. Don't quote me on that, but just a huge mountain climb. And a few weeks later, he's running the Daytona 500. DJ Kennington gets another opportunity to run the 500 in Canada. So there's just a lot of great storylines going on in the sport right now, and I think it's going to be great to watch the field from top to front. You know, can Greg Galding shutter all the VK racing drama that's going on the last few weeks and have a good opportunity to do a good job tomorrow? So, you know, whether you're out at the front of the field, in the middle of the field, or the back of the field, there's storylines from all angles, and I think we do a good job at Catch Fence, and some other organizations do a really good job as well of covering those stories that the fans may not get to see.
Well, we appreciate the work you guys do, and I appreciate you coming on today. You just said anybody's got a chance to win tomorrow, so I'll flip that around on you and really put you on the spot. Who are the real favorites, in your opinion, to win the Daytona 500 this year? Obviously, restrictor plate racing's not for everybody, but there are a handful of drivers who really excel specifically on these big tracks. Who, in your opinion, has an edge going into the day?
Well, when I look at the youth movement, I think William Byron will obviously have a good opportunity to do so. But when it comes to the veterans, you have to look at guys like Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, and Kevin Harvick, who are serious threats for tomorrow's Daytona 500. But in order to be a threat, you must, in order to finish first, you must first finish. And it's going to be interesting to see whether the rookies can adapt and survive, or the veterans' experience and patience will pay off in Daytona 500. There's just, you know, the duels were a great example of how unstable these cars are with the new package right now. And you know, I was saying about this last night. Well, who has a really good opportunity to win the 500? And I have no dead set answer, because tomorrow's race is expected to be hot and slick, and it could throw a wrench in these plans. So the jury is still out as far as my opinion goes on who can win the Daytona 500. I think, though, in order to win the 500, you're going to have to be front, and you're going to have good pit stops on pit road.
Chris Knight is our guest this morning from CatchFence.com as we talk a little NASCAR here in the Splash. Chris, what are your thoughts on the restrictor plate tracks in general? Some fans love it, but to some, the draft looks a little more like follow the leader. Does NASCAR do too much, just enough, or not nearly enough super speedway racing, in your opinion?
Well, I'm a big fan of restrictor plate racing. I think it brings an excitement and drama that peaks to a level that nobody else can experience unless they endure it in person. And I think right now, you know, as far as the teams goes, I think 4 on the Cup Series, 3 on the Xfinity Series, and 2 on the Truck Series is a balanced schedule for restrictor plate racing. I think, you know, what I love most about restrictor plate racing, right, is that you give opportunities to drivers and teams who may not have an opportunity to contend for a top 5 or contend for a top 10. And if you're competing in those respective series, you at least know you have a couple chances a year to go out there and have a shot to win. And I think that's always a great storyline.
No doubt, and I want to close with a storyline that unfortunately is following several different sports, but I want to ask a question about the state of NASCAR in general. Fans aren't coming to races, and they're not tuning in on TV like they used to. Are the constant rule changes and driver turnover, are they to blame, you think, for NASCAR's lack of interest, or is the sport, to an extent, like other sports, just a victim of the times?
I think they're just a victim of the times. And I think, I look at NASCAR and the racetracks in general, and they're doing a good job to adapt to the times as best as they can. But look, things change in the sport. We're going to have highs and we're going to have lows. But I think NASCAR has always weathered that storm, and they're doing what they can to make sure that they're listening to that younger audience about what they want. They want Wi-Fi. They want, exciting racing. I think the best thing that NASCAR has done in a long time was bring stage racing into the picture, and look what stage racing has done for the sport. I feel like that has elevated its game to a parallel that I don't think anybody expected. So NASCAR is realizes that there's some bumpy road ahead, but they're willing to put the work and effort to try to a smoother path to make sure that we have fans of all ages at the racetrack each and every weekend.
No doubt, and we'll all be tuned in tomorrow. That'll be NASCAR's biggest opportunity. Everybody gets excited for the Daytona 500, and we appreciate you joining us this morning, Chris, to get us all fired up even more about it.
All right, I appreciate you guys having me on. Call me anytime.
Thank you. Chris Knight from CatchFence.com. They do a great job. They really are on some storylines that you're not going to find anywhere else. If you're a race fan and you don't know that site, you're missing out. It's all free. It's not loaded down with ads, and there aren't any charges to read their articles. It's all free. CatchFence.com, the place to be if you are a NASCAR Monster Energy Cup fan, or if you're a fan of any of their series. Chris Knight helps run that site and does a phenomenal job. He's also a true friend of our show, and I'm fired up about the Daytona 500. I'm excited, as Chris was talking about the youth movement in NASCAR. There is a bit of one, and I think some of those young guys are going to be a little anxious, and I think that's a good thing. They're going to be ready and raring to go. They'll be aggressive, and I think as fans, that's what we want to see. We want to see some aggressive style drivers out there, not guys that are just content to sit back and let things happen, but guys that want to try and make things happen. And I think that's what we'll get with this youth movement in the sport of NASCAR. We're looking forward to the Daytona 500 tomorrow. The green flag will drop right around 1 o'clock on Fox. You can watch it locally, and I know we'll be watching. Should be a whole lot of fun. Speaking of fun, if you're looking for a good college basketball game, you can find one right here in your own backyard this afternoon. The Governors of Austin Peay are hosting Jacksonville State tonight. It's a 7 o'clock tip-off inside the Winfield Dunn Center, and we will talk about it next. Coach Sergio Rucco is going to join us. He's a veteran assistant coach with the Governors, and we look forward to chatting with him about what's going on with APSU basketball right after this here on this Saturday Sports Splash.
Ever lost or misplaced your debit card? Now, before that happens, download the Card Valet mobile app. With it, you can turn your F&M debit card on and off, establish when, where, and how it is used, and much more. And best of all, it's free. From F&M Bank, member FDIC.
Cooking for large groups is exhausting, and it saps the fun out of hosting parties and events. Let your friends at the Lunchbox do the cooking next time with carry-out catering for small family gatherings up to large company outings. Whether you want barbecue and sides, hot dogs and chips, or homemade chili, the Lunchbox has the food for your next party covered. Call them today at 931-802-8227. Or better yet, go sample their extensive menu at 2124 Woodlawn Road. Fresh ingredients become delicious homemade meals at the Lunchbox, Clarksville's new favorite eatery.
Jackson's Body Shop, downtown. Jackson's Body Shop, downtown. It's your car, it's your voice. Jackson's Body Shop, the best choice. Dents, dings, major body repair. A free loaner car, 'cause we really care. Jackson's Body Shop, downtown. Jackson's Body Shop, downtown. Call 647-6989 or Jackson's.
Looking to catch the big game with a group of friends? Do it O'Neill style. Want to see a great live band rock the stage? Do it O'Neill style. Hungry for a great meal or just thirsty for an icy cold draft beer? Get them O'Neill style at O'Neill's Bar and Grill, a genuinely great American sports bar. They've got wall-to-wall TVs, huge selections behind the bar, and a menu that obliterates the average pub fare. Clarksville's best times take place at O'Neill's Bar and Grill, located at 1979 Madison Street in Midtown.
Treat your pets to a vacation of their own at the Animal Guest House. Whether you're looking for doggy daycare service or long-term boarding, Animal Guest House will love your most loyal companions as much as you do. They have almost 2 acres of fenced-in roaming space, offer grooming services, and proudly have absolutely 0 breed restrictions. Animal Guest House is located in Woodlawn at 1970 Chester Harris Road. Give them a call at 931-920-2719 or check them out online at animalguesthouse.com. Animalguesthouse.com.
WVWB, 1400 AM, Clarksville, Tennessee.
The Austin Peay State University Governors men's basketball squad, they are currently the 4th best team record-wise in the Ohio Valley Conference. They're overachieving in a big, big way. They were picked to finish 11th out of 12 teams in the conference in the preseason, and they have overachieved majorly. We're set to be joined momentarily by their assistant coach, Sergio Rucco. He'll be with us in just a little bit. But first, let's take a look at Austin Peay's remaining schedule. They have Jacksonville State tonight. They are on the road next week against SIUE, and then they are back home next Saturday against Murray State to finish out the regular season. This is the first time since 2009 that Austin Peay has won 10 games in the Ohio Valley Conference. That's pretty darn impressive if you ask me. And the effort level, the success level that they've been able to get from the group of returnees, I think, is the biggest head-scratcher on my end. They've got 4 guys coming back this year. They're a team of mostly newcomers, but they bring back Zach Glotta, Chris Porter-Bunton, Steve Harris, and Trey Ivory. And those guys have been major contributors on this team. Those are guys that weren't major contributors before, guys that some of us had our doubts about, and somehow they all of a sudden are major contributors for the Govs. Austin Peay's won 10 games for the first time since 2009 in the Ohio Valley Conference, and they've only lost 1 conference game at home. The Govs have only lost 3 games at home all season long. So if you're looking for a great event, something to take your family out to do this afternoon, you'll find tons of fun and excitement over inside the Winfield Dunn Center. The contest tips off at 7 o'clock. You can get tickets at the door. You won't find a better deal either as far as value. I mean, it's $10 to get in. You can't go to the movies for less than $10, and everything is right there for you. It's great. There's plenty of seats. You'll get a great seat. You'll enjoy a great basketball game. Austin Peay against Jacksonville State. The Governors beat Jacksonville State badly earlier this season. I was trying to pull up the schedule here, and for some reason, I don't know if we're having internet issues or what, but the schedule's not coming up for me. Austin Peay beat Jacksonville State, though, badly on their home floor not too long ago. There it is. There's the schedule for the Govs. I'll give you that score from that Jacksonville State game back on January the 13th. The Governors beat Jacksonville State by 20. 87-67 was the final. In that one, they led by as many as 30 in that contest. Jacksonville State, of course, they are the defending Ohio Valley Conference champions. I just don't think there's a better story in college basketball right now than Austin Peay. I mean, the Governors, we didn't expect much out of them under first-year head coach Matt Figure and his staff. We didn't think things were going to go so great for that group. We thought 11th was probably a pretty fair pick as far as the way they would finish in the league, and somehow they've found a way to win 10 games. They're going to be, it looks like, one of the top 4 teams in the league going into the conference tournament, which will take place this year in Evansville, Indiana. The first round of the tournament is slated for next Wednesday, February the 28th. I say next Wednesday, Wednesday after next, February the 28th. And then they go on from there. The championship game will take place March the 3rd in Evansville. You just wonder how things will go up there. It's not centrally located, to say the very least. As a matter of fact, I need to break out the map, but I don't feel like Evansville is really close to any of the Ohio Valley Conference schools. I think it's a more than a hop, skip, and a jump for just about everybody. You know, the big complainer, I think, were the folks at Murray State for a long time about how close the tournament was when it was in Nashville to Austin Peay and Tennessee Tech and Tennessee State and Belmont. But to me, you ought to have it close to as many fan bases as possible. And Nashville achieves that. Evansville does not. As a matter of fact, the trip to Evansville is just as long, if not longer, for the folks at Murray State than the trip to Nashville. So I don't really get that. But hopefully things will go well for the conference. I know that if the Govs are there, I think we're going to try to be there with the Saturday Sports Splash and So we've got our fingers crossed. We've gotten more out of Austin Peay basketball this season than I think a lot of us expected. We were supposed to be joined by the Govs assistant coach Sergio Rucco this morning, but it is a game day over at Austin Peay, and things can get hectic from time to time. I know they have a morning walkthrough that they have. We were expecting to talk to Coach Rucco following that this morning, but we have not had an Austin Peay assistant coach on this show. This will be the first time that would have happened. I don't know that it will this morning, but that was part of the plan. But in the world of sports, things come up, things happen, and we completely understand that. We'll definitely be following the Govs as they finish up the regular season. They have 3 games left. Jacksonville State at home tonight. They're at SIUE on Thursday, and then they will be at home next Saturday versus Murray State. Now, that'll be a tough ticket. You know, the Murray fans are going to try and make their way down from Kentucky, and we hope to keep the gold out if we can. You can call ahead of time and get tickets for that, 931-221-P, 931-221-7329, the number to call to get tickets for that Austin Peay Murray State game. It's 1 week from today. However, before that, the Govs have got 2 more games. They got Jacksonville State here tonight, and then they'll be at SIUE on Thursday. I tell you what we're going to do. I've got to get out of here. We do have Clarksville Academy basketball for you this afternoon at 1 o'clock. Live from the metropolis of Bell Buckle, Tennessee, the Cougars will take on Good Pasture in the semifinals. No, they lost in the semifinals last night. The Cougars will be in the consolation game of the Division IIA Middle Region Tournament. We'll have that for you here starting right around 1 o'clock, but I've got about an hour and 40-minute drive to Bell Buckle ahead of me, and that game starts at 1, so we're going to be pushing it kind of close. So we'll wrap up the show a little early today, minus our final guest. We do want to thank the guests that were able to join us. We'll thank Isaiah Victor. He's a true friend of the show, former University of Tennessee basketball power forward. And he mentioned the sweep of Kentucky. The last time the Vols swept Kentucky in the regular season, Isaiah Victor was part of that team in 1999. So it was good to talk to him and get a little nostalgic this morning on the Saturday Sports Splash. We say thank you to Chris Knight of CatchFence.com. They do a great job covering all things NASCAR, and that's every level of NASCAR, whether it be the Xfinity Series, the Truck Series, or the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. They do a great job at CatchFence.com covering it all. We're excited for the Daytona 500 tomorrow. Plenty going on this weekend, plenty happening here on the Big 1400. You can listen to UT basketball here this afternoon as the Vols take on Georgia at 5 o'clock. You can listen to Clarksville Academy basketball here at 1 o'clock, pending I don't get caught in traffic this afternoon and not make it. But if I can make it up to Bell Buckle, then you will hear the Cougars against Good Pasture tipping off today at 1 in the third-place game of the Middle Region Tournament in Division IIA. That'll take place at 1 o'clock. And you can go watch the Governors of Austin Peay this evening on campus inside the Dunn Center as they take on Jacksonville State. The game will tip off at 7 o'clock. And, of course, the Daytona 500 is tomorrow. I know a lot of you will be watching. We appreciate you all kicking off what looks like, as I just went through the rundown, a very busy sports weekend. We appreciate you kicking it off with our show. We'll do it all over again next Saturday, hopefully with a few less kinks. The kinks were definitely not the fault of our executive producer, John Michaels. He does a phenomenal job each and every Saturday. We cannot thank him enough. We thank all of our sponsors as well. If you enjoy our show, please, there's no need to thank us. Please do thank all of the fine folks that help bring it to you, all those businesses you hear from this show each and every Saturday morning. They are the real MVPs. So we definitely want you to say thank you to them, and we'll do this all over again next Saturday at 10 o'clock. Until then, I'm Justin Swallows saying so long, everybody.
lost or misplaced your debit card? Now, before that happens, download the Card Valet mobile app. With it, you can turn your F&M debit card on and off, establish when, where, and how it is used, and much more. And best of all, it's free from F&M Bank. Member FDIC.